Hello, and welcome to this edition of South Florida Real Estate Insight. I'm Jerry Kopensky.
And I'm Eve Runciman. Today, we're diving into one important real estate indicator that most people have never heard of, the buyer engagement metric. If you're wondering whether buyers are truly active in today's market or simply browsing, this metric provides one of the clearest answers. We'll discuss the latest findings for Palm Beach, Broward County, and Miami-Dade County, and explain why this metric matters and who should be paying attention to. Before we begin, just a quick disclaimer. The information discussed in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, financial, investment, or real estate advice. Now, let's get started. Jared, first things first, what exactly is the buyer engagement metric and why people should
Well,
care about it?
Eve, the statistic to measure buyer engagement and provide guidance to recognize whether the market favors sellers or buyers indicates continued favorability to sellers during May for the fourth consecutive month in Broward and Palm Beach counties, and two out of the last four in Miami-Dade. Now, keep in mind, our discussion here centers on single family homes, since that's the benchmark or bellwether genre for existing home sales activity. Townhouses and condos, they dance to a beat of a different drum. They have their own rhythm, so they need to be analyzed separately. All right, so what are we talking about here? The ratio of pending sales to newly on the market is a powerful indicator. Why is this important? Well, it's designed to quantify buyer engagement based upon enthusiasm generated by looking at newly on the market properties. Everybody wants to see what's new to the market if you're engaged in a search as a buyer for a new home. So, whether those buyers go to contract on one of those properties or they take a look at existing inventory, which may trigger their going to contract on something that's been on the market for a while, the driving motivation is looking at newly on the market properties. So let's see what's been happening in the three counties, beginning with Broward. Pending sales to newly on the market in Broward County is showing the pending sales represented in green throughout this year accelerating in an upward trend, newly on the market basically leveling off. That has allowed pending sales to newly on the market to accelerate to the highs, near the highs of the year, actually, to provide seller favorability. And that means buyers are engaging with the market, sellers benefiting from that. You can see that over the last 4 months of this metric. The Palm Beach County representation shows even stronger. It's amplified by a little bit stronger pending sales, and then a similar leveling of the newly on the market, but a decline going into the last several months. That also has allowed pending sales to newly on the market to accelerate firmly in to seller favorability territory. And that means buyers are more strongly engaged in Palm Beach County. In Dade, Miami-Dade, that's a little bit different. We have a little bit different a situation where we have throughout the year-to-date period a level of newly on the market listings with pending sales accelerating into March and then declining. That allowed the ratio to rapidly accelerate going into March, but then kind of meaningfully trailing off here, sending what had been a favorable market to sellers in April, in March and April, back into a market more favorable to buyers in May. Now, some people will ask, in fact, there is a perception that the inventory is higher now, and that's what's causing properties to linger on the market longer, maybe sellers having to reduce prices that may have been initially high to begin with. But if we look at the metrics, we get a better perspective. Beginning in Broward County, the active inventory, all of these are active inventory graphs for the previous years prior to 2026. Active inventory is lower actually than this time last year, but higher than the previous few years, and it is in fact leveling off as we travel through the year-to-date period. Similar profile in Palm Beach County, where yes, we are lower this year than last year, but higher than the previous years. But again, a declining trend. Similar in Miami-Dade, higher last year than this year with a wider gap, but we have a little bit more of a downtrend in active inventory. Now, the thing to realize about active inventory is that some of this is due to properties being taken off the market in a withdrawn or temporarily off the market status, or they are expired listings or taken off the market by the sellers, or they are canceled listings, which would expire by their contract period. Of course, the overwhelming majority of the listings are assimilated into closed sales, which, of course, is the desired path we all seek if we're marketing your home and if you're a seller in this market. So, what's the takeaway on this? The takeaway is that we're managing the marketing campaign for your home. It's better to sell into a declining inventory market than into a market where you've got increasing inventory, um, creating more of a competition environment for what you're trying to accomplish. And the uh, the median days to sell also is something to take note of because across most price points and in the composite relative to the previous few years, that has been ratcheting downward, not by a lot, but it is going in the right direction. That adds to the notion of improved buyer engagement. Now, a clarification on newly on the market listings. A listing can be new only once under a given ML number. So properties returning to the market after having been withdrawn or temporarily off the market are not counted as new listings. Properties returning to the market either by the same or different agents after having expired or been canceled are assigned new ML numbers, so that means they're dumped into the new listings bucket. Their presence can generate buyer interest since enthusiasm is enhanced and elevated by looking at what are perceived as new listings. Now, it is incumbent upon your real estate agent to investigate the marketing history of properties during this cycle. I mean, all properties, meaning that since their last closed transactions. Let me repeat that because it's important. It is incumbent upon your real estate agent to investigate the marketing history of properties during this cycle, meaning since their last closed transactions. You can get all of this data, commentary, and lots more throughout each month by, boom, subscribing for free to my Substack publications.
That's really interesting, Jerry. So, contrary to popular belief here in Miami-Dade County, the active inventory is declining, which is actually really great news. And it's not what most people think about the market. That is a really strong buyer's market, that homes are sitting for a long time on the market, and sellers are quickly to reduce prices, which really the data does not show that. So the biggest takeaway is that headlines don't tell the whole story. While some metrics suggest that market is slowing, buyer engagement remains strong in many parts of South Florida. That is why it's important to look beyond national trends and understand what's happening in your specific market before making a real estate decision. So that's so far good news, and this is a really interesting metric to follow. I think for anyone that is interested to sell or buy because it's current, as opposed to other real estate indicators are
Exactly,
based on
exactly,
past
Eve. And
trends.
with buyers engaged now and having been through this year, 2026, if you're thinking about selling, start your engines, contact us for what's happening in your area. The QR codes appear at the end of this broadcast. Thank you for joining us. And until our next edition, I'm Jerry Kopensky.
And I'm Eve Runciman. See you next time.